Today's guest is Venkat Kodomudi. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Unissant Incorporated and a friend for many years. We've known each other through our mutual work with ACT-IAC and the emerging technology community of interest and networking events and just being around DC. Thanks for joining me today, Venkat.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
So for those who haven't had a chance to, hang out with you, talk about your background. Where are you from, who you are, and what do you do?
Oh boy. The shortcut or the long way? It's okay. I'll say whatever I think. I'm originally from India and southern part of India, in a town called Chennai is where I come from, or the southern state of Tamil Nadu. Came to the US after I finished my bachelor's, and then have been in the US since 1990. Climbed up the ladder, have two master's degrees in the US, a master's in computer science and an MBA, and here now.
Yeah, so what was that original bachelor's in?
My bachelor's was also in computer science, so that was a deliberate decision for me. I started my career in my high school itself, where I kind of started taking computer classes and specialized in computer science. Even in my high school, I remember my uncle had brought me one of those Sinclair computers, like the Commodores. So he had brought me one of those Sinclair computers that I actually hooked up to the TV and had a cassette tape recorder. That's your memory.
Yep.
So I used to write a bunch of basic program and then store it in the tape recorder. So that's kind of fascinated me even in my high school days. So that kind of put my trajectory towards computer science and have not looked back.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, did you always know that you planned to leave India and come to the United States, or was that something that came about while you were in college?
No, actually, I did know that I was not stopping with my bachelor's. My dad said this to me, and I say this to my children, which is, you have to do one better than your parents. So I knew I had to do at least one master's because my dad had a master's degree as well. But besides that, computer science and the US, in my high school days, when my uncle had brought me the Sinclair, I knew that I have to go to the US for my master's. So through my college, it was in the back of my mind, although I actually went and appeared for interview for the Indian Air Force, and I actually got in as a computer engineer in the Indian Air Force. Decided not to take it and just flew to the US.
Oh wow, that's unique. Yes, I have not met many who even tried to go into but to be in the Air Force. Wow.
It was a very interesting whole interview process. It was a week-long process, and I'm actually quite every time I talk about it because it's a very unique experience. Like a week-long process, we start off with about 140 to 150 people in the batch.
Wow.
And then they kind of weed down every test. Brings a number down. So the first was a written test, brought it down to about 45 to 50. And then the 45 to 50 actually go through the entire 5-day interview process.
Okay.
And in the last time, out of the 45 to 50, 8 of us were chosen, just 8 in that batch. So from 148, it was down to 8. So I was one of the 8 that was chosen in that batch. So it's both a proud experience moment and a good experience.
Yeah, interesting. I imagine that would prep you well if you wanted to go do a Google interview or something.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
They're known for their drawn out, lengthy interview process.
That way, yes, but you never know what Google's going to ask. If you watch a movie, whatever that movie is.
Right. So then, as you came to the United States, did you come to do the master's, or did you have job opportunities already available?
No, it was I came to do my master's in computer. Actually, I joined computer engineering and then switched to computer science in my first semester, second semester, because I was more into software and less into tinkering and soldering. So
And
I switched to computer science.
was that a school here located in
Yeah.
the DC area, or was it someplace else?
No, I actually went to Arizona State University
Okay.
back in the West, and then I've been moving east since then. I got my first job in Dallas out of college and lived there for 5 years, and then decided to move to the DC area and have lived here since.
So, I mean, what precipitated the DC move? Were you wanted to be close to the federal government, or just new opportunities?
Actually, new opportunity number one, and number two is the Indian diaspora and Indian community is much bigger in the DC area, was much bigger in the DC area, is still in the DC area than Dallas area. So that kind of attracted me. And of course, my family at that time lived here and they moved back here as well. So
Okay.
all of them attracted me, and the job was perfect for me as well. So
Wow. Now, was that first job in the federal space, or was it in the more commercial side?
so the first job in the DC area, which is 5 years after I graduated from my master's, was in a federal space, a federal consulting company, in the DoD space, actually. We were rewriting the entire foreign military sales platform. So we're kind of consolidating about 13 systems into one system. And we were rewriting the foreign military FMS platform for DoD. And my role was so there was a enterprise architect and a chief technology architect. So I came in as a chief technology architect for the platform. It was a 4GL, fourth generation language platform that we were using at that time. So I came in as an expert in that platform.
Okay, interesting. And you came in to the hardest, most strict, most regimented part of government, DoD,
Oh yes,
as their first experience in this wonderful DC area of consulting.
yes. And if you hear what I actually did, it was very challenging, but it gave me it gave me a huge bump up or jump up in my career, because I had to take the entire infrastructure of the product, of the solution that we were building, and rewrite it for performance improvements. So the infrastructure was a dog. It was slow like hell.
Mhm.
So they brought in the product vendor to provide some recommendations on improvements, performance improvements. So I single-handedly rewrote the entire infrastructure
Wow.
based on those recommendations. And that kind of gave me, of course, I came in as an individual contributor, but once I finished this, I became the architect overnight
Yeah.
because
Wow.
I knew every line of code in the infrastructure.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And then how has your career progressed since then?
Since then, it's a combination of deliberate moves and uh, uh, I would say a combination of so deliberate moves one, and then luck and the lack thereof uh, were the moves. I have been laid off at least once in my career, which is why I said and lack thereof. But then that turned out and it became an opportunity for me, because so uh, from that role I went into. Since then I've been in consulting. So it's since 1997 I've been in consulting, except for a few years in the federal government, which I'll come to. But I've taken the role of so given since I was the expert, one of the experts in that product, the product company itself hired me
Mm.
as a national consultant for the product. Then that's where I got laid off because the company was bought out, and the product was shelved and so on and so forth. But then since then I got into the DHS world as a consultant again in the DHS space, where I was a chief architect for all the applications for a particular contracting vehicle for a DHS agency. And then I got hired as an employee, federal employee, since after that. That's how I got in to the federal government. And in at TSA, and it's you can go look at my career in LinkedIn. So I'm not saying anything that's not public. So at TSA, I did three major things, and that was actually going into TSA was a deliberate move on my part. But at TSA, I did three things. One was before joining TSA, I was leading the deployment of a learning management system for TSA. So I was a lead architect for that. And TSA took me on as a individual contributor to lead as a program manager for the learning management system in TSA as well. That's one major area of specialty that I had. And then I led half of all apps dev, application development for TSA. So I had the entire Microsoft stack. So at any given time, I had about 80 applications that was in my portfolio that I managed. And then I got promoted again. I was the deputy of IT operations for TSA. So the day-to-day operations was fine, and I was a tiebreaker for the change control board as well. So those were all deliberate moves on my part in climbing up the ladder. And at which point I was like, okay, I'm still ambitious. So the big question became, do I want to become an SES or do I just leave? So the better part of leaving pulled me out. So I left. Since then, I've been, and since then I've been kind of having lateral moves until I reached Unissant, where I am right now. But some of these lateral moves actually got me a patent, where I am a patent holder, one of the patent holders in a blockchain-based distributed data sharing platform that actually full circle came back to DoD. So we built it for the DoD, which is now being viewed in DoD as I would say as a benchmark. Is a good word to put it. But then now coming to my today's world, I'm kind of using. So I want to go back a little bit, like from a technology perspective. Computer science, yes, but I've always been fascinated by multiple systems talking to each other. That's been my my interest. That's been my passion. That's what I focused on in my master's in computer science, distributed systems, and even my master's thesis was on that. I wrote a C program where about 7 or 8 Sun workstations can talk to each other without having to log into each computer. So that I kind of built a distributed directory service for these systems.
Wow, that's a company name I haven't heard in a long time. So.
Yes, that is very true. But that's where I started my career in distributed systems, and fast forward, blockchain is. I'm like, duh, where was I? So. So when I got into blockchain, I was like, this is something that has always been my passion. So, and I'm one of those guys who I need to get my hands dirty in order for me to understand what the technology is about. So when I started, I actually built a network on Hyperledger Fabric, and I actually built a first smart contract, which is how I learned myself. And then I went and bought some Bitcoins just to see how those work. It's of no value right now, but just to see how it works.
Sure. Wow. So you've done something that I wish a lot of people in our area, in the DC area, had done, which is do some contracting, consulting, spend a little bit of time in government, get a feel for how that is, right? When you're bringing in the work, when you're, rather than bidding on the work or delivering on the work, understanding the regulations, the regulatory environment, the compliance challenges, the audit risks, and getting a good appreciation from it from a government viewpoint, and then go back to industry with that new, fresh view, and then deliver again to government in a way that's going to be even better than the way you delivered potentially the first time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that one thing that you didn't mention is the contracting nuances. Being a program manager, running contracts on the federal side, that gave me an appreciation for the nuances of the regulations and the nuances of how we should approach contracts from this side.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So now at Unison, what do you know, as chief technology officer, that a lot of different places do different things with the CTO, right? What is the CTO
Yes.
for you at Unison?
Yeah. So three parts, right? I think. One part is a market-facing a person where represent Unissant as a technology company, as a formidable federal government contractor. So that's one part. The second part is which we're starting to define the strategy for is we're trying to make Unison reborn as a data company. We're all things data. We're focusing the company as a technology is going to focus on all things data. So that's my second role is the strategy part and the participating in the strategy and then leading the implementation of the strategy for the technology part. And the third part, of course, is I manage all the thought leaders in the company for the company. So I've got a data analytics expert. I've got a cloud expert. I've got a cybersecurity expert. I've got a infrastructure automation expert. I've got a technology expert in the verticals. And then I've got a solution architect who handles the application architectures. So that's kind of my that's the third part. But coming back to the second part, in addition to implementing the strategy, or one part of implementing the strategy, is I'm kind of taking the knowledge over the years and starting to build accelerators that focuses on today's federal government problems and can deliver speed up delivery, right? So when we get a contract, and we actually have accelerators that we can come to bring to the table to speed up delivery and quality.
It's very smart because, I mean, as you know, and as you know, I know, government's got a lot of needs, and your company can be functionally a generalist, or they can become really, really good at a couple things, right?
Right.
And maybe even build that out as they have the opportunity. But being really, really good, it wins you more contracts than being a generalist.
Right, and that's kind of what since I've taken over, our CEO and our leadership, we're deliberately going towards we're a data company. We are a company focused on. We recently started coining the slogan. We want to keep the nation safe and healthy. So that's it. That's our verticals: national security and health. That's it. And a data company. So that's kind of where we're starting to morph the company Unison 3.0 as.
Wow. And those are good. Those are very well structured, very needed area of government, right? You know, the regulatory environment that we deal in, those are key areas. Data is everything right now. Data is everything. And our health IT across the board in government needs all the help it can get. It's so hard to keep up with the pace of technology.
And given that uh, the federal government is kind of focused a lot on sharing data, that's kind of where we're starting to focus on as well as one of the accelerators, where we can help with automation, AI, ML. So everything that goes with data is where we're focusing on.
Nice. So Venkat, as you've gone through your varied career and interesting opportunities that you've had, what's something you've witnessed that if we came to you, Venkat, and said, can you what's a change we should make? What might that change be?
The biggest change I see that we still should make is that technology should always be an enabler to the business. Technology should not be driving business. It should be the other way around. I think the understanding is there, but it's not there yet to the extent that it should. So I think, to me, if I were to do it again, I would always start with the business. What is it that you want solved? What are your guardrails? What is the scope? What are your pain points? What is that you want solved? Let me find the right technology for you, and not bring you. Technology should not be a build it and they'll come approach. So I think, to me, that's
if you have the secret to getting government offices to consider even defining their processes.
Yeah, that's a discussion for another day. So
right. But those things feed into the requirements of what it is they're trying to get accomplished. I think the speed of business for government in many ways, and the compliance and the audit risk and all the other things that pile onto that speed of business, tend to distract us. As you say, we look at what technology can meet our needs and fix this, rather than what are our actual needs, what are we trying to accomplish, articulate that, and then let somebody like yourself then pitch the right solution.
Right. And let's fail fast.
Yeah.
Let's formulate an idea, formulate a thought. Let's quickly build something, see if it works. If it fails, it fails. But we know at least know in the beginning, right? So let's fail fast.
Yeah, the fail fast, which I'm a huge fan of, is something I have not seen very many government agencies adopt as a methodology. Some sort of prototyping, understanding,
yes,
experimentation before you go build the full final product, or even design the full final product of what it's going to be needed.
Yes, the goal should be to give the something in front of the actual users as soon as possible, so that you can get that feedback.
Yeah,
you can get the feedback going, right? So that should be the goal.
Well, you've talked a bit already about what's next for Unissant 3.0. How do you think that's going to, what are you going to be strategic now, and also the government agencies you're going to work with? If you're thinking data, I know that's everybody, but there are big players right in the data space, people who have more data than others do, DHS being one, and you're familiar with the DHS space. Health, right, where they're not every agency is involved in the health space. Are you fine-tuning in terms of where you're going to target as well?
Within the health and national security space, yes. Fine-tuning into the health and national security space, but within the health and national security space, sky's the limit.
Sure. So other than the re-envisioning that you're doing, is there anything else that's coming up next for Unison or for yourself?
Unison, that's a handful already.
Yep.
For myself, that's a handful already. But for me, I think I personally would want to see the missions succeed. I go back to business lens technology, right? So I want to be relevant to the mission. That's my personal interest and goal.
Well, and Unison, the proof is in the pudding, right? And I think you mentioned before we started recording that you're a nominee for an award. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Washington Business Journal we were chosen as a nominee for top, I believe it's a 50 company to work for. Or no, not to work for, top 50 companies in the Washington metro area. Unison has been nominated as one of the nominees. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
The final ceremony is on November 1st. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean it's a big thing to celebrate, right? Sure, we wait and see if they win, but the fact that you've been nominated means you're doing something right.
That's very true. I hope so.
Well, Venkat, we've known each other a long time, and I really appreciate that you coming on the podcast and having an opportunity to hear a bit more about your story and what's going on with the company. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Jeremy, and it was a pleasure chatting with you. See you soon.